Hi there, so I'm Hemal and I'm from Marks & Spencer from our digital lab. So if you haven't heard of us, M&S is the largest high street clothing retailer in the UK. We have about 800 stores around the country. We also operate in 50 other countries as well, so you can shop with us on the high street or online using our website or our app. So the digital lab has been around for about a year and a half now, and it's all about experimentation. So we'll experiment with ways to make shopping really easy for our customers, whether that's online, in-store, and how to bridge those two worlds as well, right through to tinkering around with new business models, so thinking how our customers might consume the products that we sell in 5 to 10 years' time, and validating models that support those ways. So we use lean startup techniques to kind of validate the things that we're working on really quickly. So the idea is to fail as fast as possible, or to learn fast. So we'll try 10 things, we'll expect 9 of them to fail, and the one thing that works will scale. So we're an in-house team. We've got a multidisciplinary, cross-functional skill set, from digital product design to development, and data scientists, and a bit of marketing clout as well. So my talk today is 3 tips for running your own lab of a similar format to us, which I think are applicable to any digital product development team, regardless of what you're working on. And so for each tip, I'll give a little example of something that we've cooked up in the lab. So the first tip is to listen, and today's a great opportunity to do just that. So listen to inspirers, but it's important to listen to people outside of your domain as well, outside of retail, and to get their perspective of the world and to see the world through their eyes. And so for us externally, that means speaking to everyone from fashion designers through to psychologists, and internally listening to our colleagues. So our .com development and trading colleagues will get us thinking about e-commerce. Our retail colleagues will get us thinking about in-store service design, and our Plan A colleagues will get us thinking about the environment and the planet. So if you've not heard of Plan A, Plan A is M&S's approach to baking sustainability into everything that we do. So that's from how our suppliers source their fabric right through to our retail operations and everything in between. And so the example from the lab came about having spent some time with our Plan A team. They told us about cotton production and consumption. So a crash course on cotton production, it takes 20,000 litres of water to produce 1 kilogram of cotton. It's just under 3,000 litres to create a t-shirt. So the cotton is grown on land which could otherwise be used to grow food. Once it's harvested, we grab the bud, we throw away the crop. And so it's a fairly resource-intensive commodity to create. But thankfully, cotton is recyclable and reusable. And this is something that we've tried to encourage M&S with our shopping campaign, where we invite customers to bring in an item of old clothing when they're buying something new. And so in the lab, we learnt a bit about the friction points when it comes to recycling and donating items of clothing. And there are 3 main friction points. The first one is knowing if your item of clothing is worth anything at all. Secondly, it's finding out where to take that piece of clothing. And thirdly, it's the actual act of doing it. And so this got us thinking in the lab, what could we do to make donating as effortless as we try and make shopping in the first place? And so perhaps having cleaned out your wardrobe, you take a picture of the item that you're about to donate. You get a price back from your local charity shop, so how much that item is worth to them. And you end up with a total. So it feels like you're making a cash donation, not just a bag of old stuff. And then how about if within a couple of taps, you can arrange a collection? So a volunteer from your local charity shop will pop by 10 AM on Saturday morning to pick up your bag of donated clothes. And so that gets you thinking about whether retailers can have an impact and getting cotton back into the cycle. And so when we think about things like last mile delivery, using services like shuttle, can we also think about first mile collection and making donating as effortless as we try and make shopping in the first place? So that's an example of listening to inspirers and how that can lead you down different paths, and in this case tackle clothing donation. So my second tip is to think like a challenger brand. And this is adopted from Adam Morgan's book, Eating the Big Fish, where he describes how David Challenger brands can take on Goliath incumbents by positioning themselves as the antithesis of that incumbent. And so if an incumbent is monolithic, faceless and cold, then you as a challenger brand need to be human, empathetic and warm and dynamic. And so we use this approach when thinking about the service design of the propositions that we're conjuring up in the lab. And an example of, in the hope that if we're in the incumbent, we're the opposite, we'll be the opposite of what we currently are. And if that works, that grows, and that becomes the incumbent one day. And so we get this constant rejuvenation of our brand and our positioning. over the long term. And so an example of this in the lab is when we think about outfit suggestions to customers. And so when we suggest outfits to customers, it's a little prescribed, it's a little bit one way. So we'll put up an outfit, and if they don't like it, there's not much they can do. So how about if we let customers create their own outfits? So we give them our product range, we give them a blank canvas, they can create, save, and share outfits amongst their friends. And this works quite well online, and obviously we make it really easy to buy each of these items. Then that got us thinking about what about in-store? So in-store, we are fortunate enough to see and speak to our customers on a daily basis. And when we speak to them, we help them when it comes to outfitting and providing suggestions. So if you come in store, you'll speak to one of our sales assistants. And so during that interaction, we learn a lot about the customer. We learn their likes, their dislikes, their preferred styles and tastes. And they also learn a lot about us and our fashion credentials. And so if you come in, perhaps you're looking for a jacket for a job interview, you need something that's not too formal but also not too casual, so as to look underdressed. We'll find you the perfect item and hopefully you leave a happy customer. But that relationship ends when you leave the shop. And so having spent time building a rapport with our customers, we thought, how could we prolong that relationship? How could we build on the rapport that we've just created with customers? And so having spent time with a sales assistant in your local store, how about if you had them in your pocket? How about if they were there at your beck and call for any outfitting suggestions or any problems that you have? For example, you might need a recommendation for a specific occasion. We can recommend a few pieces that have arrived in store that week. Or perhaps you're rummaging through your wardrobe to donate some things and you found a few old pieces, and we can give you a few suggestions how to bring those pieces to life. And so obviously we'll make it really easy to buy this stuff, so you can obviously buy it online. Or how about, given that this recommendation has come from a local store, you tell us what you like and we'll have it waiting for you in your size in a fitting room ready for when you arrive in store. So that's an example of how thinking like a challenger brand can shape your service design of the types of things that we experiment with. And in this case, go from a one-way experience to a two-way human experience. So my third tip is to move fast and iterate. And so as I mentioned, we're an in-house team. We're able to get things into the wild relatively quickly. And we're able to learn from what we do in days and weeks rather than months or years, as some digital endeavours can take. And so an example of this in the lab would be thinking about our e-commerce experience. So we have, being a department store, we sell lots of different things, from socks right through to sofas. And in store, each of those categories get the time and attention they deserve to be merchandised in the appropriate way to best sell them. But online, we have one website to sell all those different types of products. So you end up with a one-size-fits-all e-commerce experience, which is something that most department stores have to contend with. And so that got us thinking, what about if we could create a category-specific e-commerce experience for each of the types of products that we sell? And so let's take a category. So let's take formal shirts, a crash course on how gents buy formal shirts. It's generally a distressed purchase. It's generally buying 3 or 4 or 5 at a time to renew their old current set. That's probably a bit tired. I'm certainly guilty of this. And we generally know what we want because we stick to what works. So there's 4 main considerations when it comes to buying a shirt. There are 2 things which are really obvious: the neck size and the fit. And the 2 things which are kind of subconscious are the collar type and the cuff type, so single or double. And those last 2 things I generally know it when I see it things. And so if we take that buying behaviour and we roll it into an e-commerce experience, it might look something like this, where we invite a customer to select a fit, we explain what those fits are, and then having done so, you're through to the next step, which is to select the 3 things that matter, so it's size, collar and cuff, and nothing more. And so back to my point about iterating quickly, you might get version 1 out of the door, realise what's working, what's not based on data and customer behaviour, and you're able to get version 2 out the door within subsequent weeks. And then again, you're able to iterate and get version 3 out and enhance and customise your experience based on what you're learning. And so going back to the category-specific approach, we can also borrow ideas from how we merchandise things on the high street. So with shirts, we display our shirts in a rainbow spectrum. So if you're looking for a blue shirt, your eyes just kind of follow the blues, and cognitively it's less effort to get to the shirt that you're looking for. And so doing this online, that might look something like this, whereas as you scroll through the rainbow, and you're able to get to the shirts that you want to in the least amount of effort. It turns out sorting by colour is really difficult. This is the algorithm you need to use if you want to do it yourself. It's destroyed the mind of our finest engineer, and he's still recovering. And so back to a category-specific approach, we're able to also kind of showcase products in ways that we wouldn't have done before. showcasing the small details and getting across things like our tailoring credentials in this instance. So that is an example of how moving fast and iterating can get you to from version 1 to version X in the least amount of time possible and help you move the dial on the metrics that you're trying to improve. In this case, things like conversion and average order value. And in that example, our record was 32 deployments to production in a day, where we were deploying small incremental changes, and we were able to measure the effect of those changes over time and roll back if they were detrimental. So those are my 3 tips. So it's to listen to inspirers, to think like a challenger, and to move fast and iterate. You can follow us on Twitter to keep an eye on what we get up to and see what we're cooking up, basically. I hope that's been useful. Thanks very much for listening.
So when you're in a big company with 800 stores, with going across territories, how do you stop the digital innovation unit becoming an island? How do you ensure that it talks to the senior managers of the company, the whole company?
By spreading our wings, so we liaise with every part of the business. So it's essentially top-down, bottom-up thing. We've got buy-in from the top, and we've given the freedom and autonomy to spread our wings as we see fit and go for opportunities. So the work is incredibly varied, from things like you saw from Plan A right through to e-commerce experience. So it's about constantly moving and constantly listening, I guess.
I got another question, partly in the context of some of the talks we've heard from Jack and from Tom about everything is going to be about real-time delivery. Now, you set up a company called Pocket Shop that was doing fairly speedy delivery inside London, groceries and other things, which is no longer going. So I just wondered, as a reality check to all the visionary messages we had, give us an idea of some of the challenges that these businesses are still going to have to overcome in the physical process of delivering atoms to human beings.
Yeah, so I've learned a lot. I can't talk too much about that, to be honest. But I mean, it's doable. So you see things like Shuttle happening, you see things like Street Hub. It's happening. So I guess it's doable. Go out and do it, solve the obvious problems, and stay focused on making it happen, I guess.
What's the hardest aspect of it?
Depends on the model. So I mean, we didn't leverage the network of couriers. We built our own army of shoppers, and with that comes various operational challenges. And in startup mode, you're kind of juggling lots of different things and spinning lots of plates. So again, I can't share too much about that, annoyingly, but the hardest thing is to stay focused. So I'd say stay focused to startups.
Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,